Throughout history, free thinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. With me is Armin Navabi. Armin, good morning.
Morning.
Where it is and where he is. And we're very excited today. So we have a very special guest today, truly special. Autumn Sherif is a Somali-Dutch-British singer. She arrived with a bang on the UK public stage. She had a classic performance on The Voice, which was absolutely phenomenal. We watched it yesterday. So I was telling Autumn that my niece, my 13-year-old niece, and I were watching all her music yesterday, and she was totally blown away. And I think she's going to be sort of telling all of her friends about it as well. So this year, what happened with Autumn is Autumn decided to speak publicly about her upbringing as a Muslim, and she came out with a video that said, "I am Somali and not Muslim." So she was raised as in a Muslim background, a Somali Muslim background, but does not identify as one anymore. So there are other prominent public figures in the UK like Zayn, Malik, like Jameela, Jamil, who also came from Muslim backgrounds and have publicly said they don't longer believe in the religion. So Autumn, your story is pretty characteristic of many countless young people today who are embracing reason and embracing reason and independence over faith. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast. It's truly an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start from the beginning. So you're part of the Somali background. You were born in the Netherlands.
Can you mention the video
Yes.
before we go to our background story? Like the recent video that made a huge noise, like the backlash to that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Autumn put out a video, and there's a link to it in this description. It's called "I Am Somali and Not Muslim," and it was an explanation of how she was raised and why she does not identify as a Muslim anymore.
Right.
And there was massive backlash to it because you're a public figure, so a lot of people had a problem with it. But you also found a lot of support among other
Absolutely.
people who think alike. So let's start with that. Let's start with your.
Which one was more, the support or the backlash?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning, the backlash was intense. It started off with a lot of backlash. And I remember my YouTube video had an incredible amount of dislikes over likes. So I thought, okay, it doesn't matter. This is what I think. This is how I feel. I knew that the backlash would exist. But then there was an outpour of love and people who felt like me. And you gentlemen shared it. A guy named Abdul Samir, he shared the video, and all of a sudden I was exposed to a new world, the world of ex-Muslims.
Oh, you got cut. Oh, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back. Okay, you were exposed to the word of ex-Muslims? Okay.
Ex-Muslims and people who just stand in condolence and acknowledge the freedom of thought, the freedom of belief, and now the love is much more.
Yes.
I have to say.
And you didn't know about the ex-Muslim world before this?
I'm sure they must have existed, but I felt unique in my situation because growing up in a completely Somali Muslim household, and everyone from my aunties, my uncles, my friends, they're all Muslim. There was no window out of there, and for a long time, I lived in that environment. So even when I was curious, I couldn't talk to anybody about it, or dare to voice it out to anybody else to have the conversation. And so I felt isolated, and I was never exposed, so I didn't know that there were.
So why did you put out the video? And what gave you the courage to put it out there, and what was the goal?
I wanted to speak my truth. I'm very much like that, and I wanted to share it with everybody. It wasn't an easy or fast decision either. I have not identified as a Muslim for a very long time. I said in the video I never felt Muslim, which is true. I had to fight what I thought. And when I came to terms with it fully, I'd say about 4 years ago, I've been living publicly, you know, on the streets and my work, and anyone who I'd meet, I'd share who I am with them. So I came to terms with it, and then I felt it was only right to share it publicly and hopefully start a conversation in the Somali.
You get cut out again, but it's okay. You come back.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. So
but before you say start from the beginning, I just want to say I'm really happy to hear that once the ex-Muslim world discovered that you're coming out, they countered all that hate that you got with a lot of love and support. That makes me so happy that that's the reaction that you got. That means that the whole ex-Muslim as a movement is working, that when somebody comes out, they don't feel alone anymore. Like, I'm so glad that was your experience, and I'm really proud of the ex-Muslim community for making you feel like that. So
absolutely, and I'm so overwhelmed as well by the outpour of other people, Somali or not, who identify as non-Muslim or ex-Muslim, and they still live in fear and live in private. But because of the outpour of love for me and them seeing that, if they felt safe enough to maybe step forward, and I'm so happy that's happened. So happy.
Yeah, this is it's a really important conversation.
Incredible.
Yeah, to have, because in all of the other faith communities, like in the Christians, Catholics, you know, if you're a lapsed Catholic, if you're a secular Jew, if you're a former Scientologist or Mormon, you get book deals and TV shows, and people praise you to the moon. You have careers in stand-up comedy. I mean, people do all kinds of things. They achieve all kinds of things. But there's this expectation that if you're from a Muslim background, then everybody has to think the same. You all have to believe. And if you don't, you just don't fit that narrative. And that's something I think that a lot of young people from the Muslim community like yourself are challenging. And especially people with prominent public profiles like yourself, I think it's extremely important. So how did it, so you said you were born in a Muslim family. What was your journey like? So you were raised religiously and then later on lost it? Or how did it go? How did the evolution
Absolutely. My earliest memory, I mean, I was wearing the full hijab from, I don't want to guess, but I'd say maybe 8 years old. I remember wearing the hijab and onwards. We used to go to Islamic school in the weekends. We'd have to pray 5 times a day. Never really did that. I tried my best. I'd have my moments. I had my moments. But that was the standard and that was the expectation. And we were Muslim, and the afterlife and everything was heavily instilled in us. As in me and my siblings. But again, as a curious little kid, I asked everyone questions, like the one I mentioned in the video. If someone dies a good human, should they be destined for hell if they're not a Muslim? And I would watch everyone dance around these questions and leave me unsatisfied every single time. And the older I got, the more I had questions, the more I wanted to express myself and have the freedom to do what I needed to do.
So you seemed like you were curious from the beginning, and you wanted explanations for why, you didn't just want to follow. You wanted explanation for something. Do you think is that you were different? Is that the reason why you're an ex-Muslim? Do you think that you were naturally different from, you were born curious, or what do you think explains the difference between how you look at things and people around you?
So you see, when you grow up, when I grew up in my environment, Islam was presented to me as the truth and the only. are blessed to be within this. And
so you got cut for a second. You said Islam was represented to you as the truth, right? Is that what you said?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Okay. And my whole world revolved around this truth and this faith. And I just wanted to make sense of it, because I grew up in London. I moved from Holland and I came to London. I had friends in my school who also strongly believed in their faiths. You know, you have the Sikh child, the Christian, and they're all speaking something similar to what my family are saying. And I understood the conflict straight away. I would laugh and joke with my friends, and then in the back of my mind, I'm told that this person is destined for hell, and it left me very confused. And honestly, it just didn't make sense. And I had to kind of understand that, because I was indoctrinated as well, and I was basically forced to just admit that I was a Muslim. And they do that by like punishing you or telling you off, or telling you not to question, not to they would blame it on the shaitan, for example, if you have a low iman, you know.
By the way, for people that don't know, shaitan means the devil. But
the devil, they'd blame it on the devil. So imagine the complex for little old me, you know, who thinks now I'm possessed with the devil. It was a trip.
That is very interesting, because that is the same conflict that I had to deal with. Like, even as a child, I could not understand how people could know, like, oh yeah, this person is going to burn forever in hell. Oh, it's okay. Like, how is that not bothering the whole world? Like, all these people are going to be tortured for eternity?
It's actually one of the most common things whenever we have guests who are from Muslim families who left the faith. Especially in the West, like the number one thing that they say is, I just went to school and I had very good friends who were Christian and who were from other faiths, and we just used to look at it, and I was told that they're all going to hell, and they couldn't come to terms with it. It didn't. That's one of the things that really confused them. So I think exposure to a variety of different people, different belief systems and everything, that really, really helps put things into perspective.
Yep, but what is not common is what you did, which is really good that you did, is because we have more and more people coming out as leaving religion secretly, publicly, or maybe to their family. And we just recently had a study that showed that in the Arab world, people are leaving religion faster than ever. But what you did is unique, and this is what makes the big difference. Is coming out and telling people that, listen, I'm not Muslim, and I think that is more important, because you're helping normalize the whole thing, and you're helping. It's very similar to the gay rights movement in this 1960s and 1970s in North America and Europe. It wasn't just about being gay. It's about the first people that decided, like, listen, I'm going to tell the whole world, and making it easier for the people that are coming after them, right? Especially if there are people that somebody like you that is a singer, and some people are following and they enjoy the music. And if you come out and say you're an ex-Muslim and you don't identify as a Muslim, either the person will consider it, or they are already ex-Muslim and feel like, oh, I'm not alone. Or even if they're a Muslim and remain a Muslim, they maybe think like, okay, ex-Muslims, I guess it's fine. Some people are not Muslim. Like, they don't, even if for people that remain Muslim, at least in their eyes, it becomes a little bit more normal and less demonized.
Absolutely. And I have to acknowledge the many Muslim people that sent and reached out to me and sent me messages and stood in condolence and solidarity. And they told me, listen, I'm a Muslim, but religion shouldn't be compulsory on anybody. If that's how you feel and that's what you think, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right. And I found that incredibly beautiful, because you're right. I do want to normalize it, because it is normal.
Right.
It is normal. How we consume the world and our forms and modes of sanity is personal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even if
it should have always been.
Right.
So this is one thing I wanted to ask you about.
Before you say, sorry, Ali, even if it's not normal, it should be normal. But I do want to say that when you say, like, Muslims say that, oh, religion shouldn't be compulsory, a lot of times atheists and ex-Muslims get tempted to remind them that actually, no, Islam does make it compulsory, but that is true.
Absolutely.
That is true, but on the other hand, you have to recognize that specific individual for not being like that. Even though if you agree that though you correctly know that Islam does make Islam compulsory, that's a separate discussion from the fact that individual Muslim, even if it's not in accordance to Islam, that individual Muslim is tolerant of other ideas.
Yeah.
So that's you have to recognize that in that individual.
Absolutely.
Right.
And when people rebuttal my video and they tell me, why did you make this silly video, religion isn't compulsory, you can go and do what you want to do, when they come to me with that approach, I have to remind them, actually, it is very compulsory. It has been compulsory my entire life.
Right.
There are laws in many Muslim lands that completely forbid. We know the punishments for apostasy in many places.
Right.
So I do have to remind them, but I just separately wanted to acknowledge the Muslims who do accept and are tolerant, because if we can't, discard them, and they are part of the change too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry, continue with what you were saying.
Myself?
No, I think she's. No, you go on. You go on.
No,
I'm done.
Yeah. No, I think that what you said, and you mentioned this in the video too. Like, one of the things that I really liked about it is that it showed a lot of compassion for Muslims, and we make a distinction here between Islam, the set of beliefs, and Muslims, the people. And we have this. We have, I don't want to say faith, but we believe that most Muslims are much better than the beliefs that are prescribed for them. So, in a sense, and it's especially hard to do that. And that's why I'm so glad you did it, is because right now there is a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment and politics around the world. And most of us, we have Muslim families, we have Muslim friends and everything that we grew up with. And there are many of them that, as you mentioned out, that are supportive and that are sort of evolving on these issues. So, was that a conscious decision in your video? Like, when you talked about how you don't believe in Islam, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you think that all Muslims are terrible people. How important is that to point out?
For me, it's incredibly important, because I believe that I should have the right to believe in what I want, that goes also for the Muslim community. If they feel Islam is for them, if anybody feels like Islam is for them, I will never go against Islam or Muslims who follow Islam. I just want, for me, I'm fighting for the diversity itself. I'm not here to criticize anything publicly, because that goes against what I stand for. I believe that I don't have the answers as to why I'm here. I'm on a search, and everybody's on the search themselves. And if we want to make sense of this planet and why we're here, go for what makes sense to you. And for many, Islam is what makes sense for them. But I obviously have to acknowledge some of the conflict and the politics of what it means to be a Muslim, how much freedom it really does give to people. Because for me, it didn't give me much freedom. And there's a large community that never received that freedom. I feel like human beings, we can be terrible. We can talk about many topics outside of religion. We can talk about politics itself, and we'll find incredible flaws in anything. But I just want, the reason why I feel compassionate is because I feel like compassion will overrule everything.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree. Yeah. I think passion is even more important than logic. But sorry, Ali, you go ahead. I interrupted you.
I had a question. Is there anything? First of all, I have two questions. Is there anything specifically about Islam or the restrictions that you felt were placed on you? Any sort of one thing that stood out, or was there one moment that made you just kind of put you over the edge on this, or was it a gradual process of things adding up?
I would say it was a bit of both. It was a gradual process. Again, I have to come from my experience. I remember wearing the hijab and going to school, and I didn't want to wear it, for one. I would go into the store and I knew I couldn't wear that skirt or that outfit. It was just never the option. So I just sit there daydreaming. I'm very much a free spirit naturally, and everything has a bit of sense to it. When I speak to, different people from around the world, I'm like, that's really cool. I might do that. I might have like a poster of the Buddha, and then maybe burn some incense and maybe wear my traditional Somali. I just love the beauty of that. And it was denied for me. And I felt like it was unfair. And then, yes, I did read the Quran from a logical perspective. And I don't want to go too much into that because then, I don't want to offend anybody. But I read it and it just, for one, didn't resonate. I didn't read the Quran and go, oh, wow, I'm having an epiphany, or this is, my mind is blown. If anything, I had a very opposite reaction to it. I have to say. Right. And there I am reading the Quran. I want to live the life that I want to live, and the only difference is my ability and option. Yeah. So I decided, like, come on, I'm 23 now. Then I was much younger, but I need to make that step and allow myself that. Especially having the privilege of growing up in London, in the UK, where the law doesn't, protects me. Yeah. To believe what I want to believe. Sorry,
Armin, I had a follow up to that.
Right, sorry.
So you wore the hijab, and then at one point you took it off, and you're from a family, you have siblings, you have parents. How did they react to it, and what's your relationship with your family? Has this affected it in any way? You obviously have you're doing very, very well in terms of your career and your music. How is their reaction to, I guess, everything? The music, the leaving Islam, the taking off the hijab, the video that you made. Do they know? How much do they know?
Yeah, I don't have the greatest relationship at the moment because of my beliefs. I can understand it's a massive shock. Not a massive shock that I did this publicly, not me the person, because it makes perfect sense to them. They, all my family know. If they just had any look into my life and my questions and my actions growing up, that this is where I was going to end up. But it's just unfortunate that this belief or ideology, it's so overpowering and blinding that it can affect personal relationships, especially with people that you love and really care about, and you'd hate that something so, for me, trivial can have such an effect. I did miss your other question though. I was going to tie it in, but
no. The other part of the question was that when you started doing music, and you started getting successful with it, and obviously, you go into the music world. It's much more liberal. There's a lot of people that you meet who are obviously not Muslim. Probably most of them aren't, and so the success that you had with the music. I mean, I assume they were very supportive of your talent.
Absolutely. Yes. So I remember, naturally, I was supposed to be a lawyer or a doctor.
Of course.
Of course. So no parent in many households would, champion their child being an artist or a musician. So that definitely was a little bit of a back and forth, but I have to give my mom credit. I convinced her. I managed to convince her that this is my path. And I had the talent, I was singing my whole entire life. I've been writing my entire life. And I just have this connection. I just knew that it was my calling. And my mom saw it too. I asked her to come to my school assemblies, and she'd see what I do and my passion. And then she said to me, but could you please do it all and still keep the hijab? could you just be a super famous hijabi artist, like, and don't compromise anything, don't talk about love or sex or marriage, like, you know? And that was kind of like what I had to sign up for. And I was like, of course, you know, Mom, I'll do my best. And slowly, you know, the songs got a bit more complex and a bit more detailed and expressive. And it was always a bit of a challenge finding a middle ground. But my mom definitely was supportive of my music, but to a degree.
What about now?
Now, unfortunately, now the relationship is really strained because of my decision to advocate and stand up for what I believe in, and being an ex-Muslim. It's a very difficult time also for my mother, because as you can imagine, the whole community where she lives and has lived her whole life, and now, you know, joining the train of maybe bullying her or making her feel terrible that her daughter has left Islam. And that's heartbreaking to me. It's heartbreaking because it also affects the people around you.
Oh, you got cut.
We consider that too often.
See, this is what makes it even more difficult for a lot of ex-Muslims. The first barrier that you cross is like, okay, I'm an ex-Muslim. Then the second one is like, okay, I'm an ex-Muslim, and I want to tell people about it. I don't want to hide it. And then third one is like, I want to tell my parents, and maybe they will be accepting of me. And even if you pass that barrier and they're like, okay, fine, we're accepting. But then this last barrier that is sometimes impossible to pass is that, well, can you keep it private because the whole community is going to come down on us and shame us to oblivion if you like make go publicly. And like you can't be like, this is what's holding a lot of ex-Muslims back, because even if the rare ones that get their parents to accept them the way they are, they still have to keep quiet because they're afraid of the reaction of the community.
And I kept quiet I agree with you 100%. And I kept quiet for many years. I would have done this a few years ago. But it was because I knew the scrutiny that my family would face, and I felt like, was it fair? Is it? Should I just keep it to myself? Is it attention seeking? You know, there's a lot of thought that goes into coming out as a non-Muslim, definitely. But again, I couldn't hold my life for ransom.
And this is why we should be like, people should be extremely thankful to people like you, because you're basically taking the bullets to normalize it for the people. Like, eventually, the more people like you do this, we will get closer to a place where more people could come out, and the community wouldn't have that reaction anymore, because it's just happening way too often for them to have to be sensitive about each specific case, right?
Absolutely. And how beautiful will that be? Like, I'm just picturing a Somali party where my whole family is there, and you've got one that's a bit of a hippie, you know, over there doing what he's doing, and you got this person here who's not Muslim, and you know that you see a diversity for once, and a diversity that exists and is natural. Put 10 people in a room together, they can't even agree on what they want for dinner, and you're trying to tell me that they all agree on something above and beyond us, something so incomprehensible, like incomprehensible. Is that a word?
Yes.
Excuse me.
That's a word. That works for us.
You
it's
know,
a word now. Yeah.
Well, we've made it a word. Damn it. So this is my dream. It's just for people to walk past each other, share their stories, where they come from. And the thing about the Muslim community that I have to hold them accountable for is they accept people to convert into their religion. People from other faiths are walking into Islam, you know, willingly, and they embrace these people, and they know that they left something else, you know, to come to their faith. And it's like the same thing. So if people walk in, people can walk out. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, let's not be hypocritical. Let's not cherry pick what don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't
But
do it.
the way you described it,
Yes.
the way you describe your dream, that's a very beautiful dream, by the way. And also the diversity that you're hoping for is the diversity. I very it's the diversity of opinions and thoughts and people learning to accept each other. Not by the way, accepting each other for their ideas doesn't mean that you have to accept the ideas themselves, right? You can still be against those ideas.
Bingo.
But we can still be against those ideas, but accept each other with those ideas. You know, that's
Their right to believe whatever they
Bingo.
want. Yeah.
Bingo.
So you have there's a couple of interesting things like with your life. So you're part of the Somali diaspora. The Somali diaspora is actually publicly, there's so many influential public voices that are coming out of it in pretty much
Absolutely.
all fields. So it's a very sort of talented group. I mean, we've had some people like Noon Benson and others on this program as well. But you've got a U.S. Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar. You've got Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's also was in the Netherlands. Do you have? And they're all very diverse in the way that they think. There's other singers and there's actors and with that kind of background.
Absolutely.
That's one thing, and then the other thing is you're living in the UK and in Europe, where recently you had all of those. A few years, ISIS was a big thing. There's a big question about immigration, bigger debates about migrants and all of the politics. How have you paid attention to that, and how do you think you, as a Somali origin person, also born in the Netherlands, who is now identifying as secular and also a musician, all of that, how does it fit this whole thing about identities, since you have so many of them?
That's a very good question. Yes, I have been aware of everything that's been going on, especially everything with ISIS and all the terror attacks. I remember, we would watch it live happening. It would be on television, and then you see the outpour of a lot of Muslims, just normal, everyday, day-to-day Muslims, feeling very uncomfortable all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. These people don't represent, my mother, for example. However, that in itself is a conversation to have. And we cannot deny that people can misinterpret the Quran itself, and they cherry pick what they want to fight for or what they want to take very seriously. And we can't say that it's not in there. We can't say that, you can say it's been taken out of context or whatever, but that's a separate conversation to have.
Right.
Being who I am in the diaspora, we just had a lack of diversity and lack of representation. When I was really young, Amal Hirsi Ali was one person who was very well known, but also someone who was seen as the devil in my community. So I couldn't watch any of her interviews or anything, or any of her speeches, or read any of her books when I was a kid. That was like a no-go zone.
She was really. Was she really that much hated, Ayaan?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you have to understand what Ayaan stands for. My God, in those days, what happened to the man that she was working with? I think the director.
Theo Van Gogh.
Exactly. Sorry, I apologize. I don't know his name.
It's okay.
Yeah, he was beheaded, I believe.
No, stabbed.
Outside. Stabbed.
Yeah, he was stabbed to death. Yeah.
Stabbed to death. Can you imagine? Because of his association with Ayaan and her right to just express. And she's a very intelligent woman. I can't say I agree with absolutely everything, but again, this is why we're human beings. And there was only one other musician, a lady called Amal Noor, Kanan. And now that I'm now that I'm older, we've just utilized the internet. We just kind of started to grow and blossom, and there are even women who are Somali, or men who are Somali, who are Muslim, but they're very alternative in the way that they live. So maybe they don't pray, or maybe they have a bunch of tattoos. and they still want to label themselves as Muslim. So, go ahead. Why not? I think it's about time. We were stifled, I think, in media representation many years ago.
You mentioned that when you were doing your events and your singing events, you met some people that before you came out as publicly as an ex-Muslim, you secretly personally talked to people that within the Somali community that also told you that they're not Muslim. Is that
absolutely?
Do you how does those conversations start, and how did that feel like?
Well, the amount of people who aren't Muslim, it will overwhelm you.
Really?
Actually, secretly, people who are closeted ex-Muslims, it will overwhelm you. But it's also sad in the same breath, isn't it? Like that they can't actually manifest it. The conversations would start. We just talk. We'd have a very intellectual conversation about the world and the universe and religion and the conversations that we all have.
Right.
And I'm very open about it. I have been for many years. It wasn't always the case when I was very, very young, but I have been. So I would usually start to take the lead and say, "Yeah, I'm not Muslim," while I sip a glass of wine, maybe. and then it makes sense. And then they would say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you actually said that. That's so true to me as well. Like, oh my God, I can't even tell my family." And I'm like, "I know, I can understand the struggle." And actually, there was one person, in particular, this one beautiful lady. Of course, can't mention her name because she has the right to share it when she wants to, and if she ever wants to. But it was a very heartwarming conversation I had with her that prompted me to put the video out the next day.
Oh, really?
Because I was fed up. I had enough. Yes, I was just so fed up and just constantly feeling the need to be quiet. For who? For what? Like I say in the video.
Yeah.
Did she respond? Did she talk to you after you put out the video? This woman. So she was the inspiration for you to make the video, and you were like,
absolutely.
You're like, this is nonsense. Why are like? Was your thinking like, why do we all have to keep this a secret, right? Is that
absolutely
right?
Absolutely.
And what did she say when you talked to her?
We just had a really beautiful conversation. She was very worried about my safety. A lot of people were very worried about my safety. I had filmed the video weeks before, by the way, just to let you know. I had the video done, but I just was like unsure about it. For me, it was a therapy thing. So I wanted to do it on camera and see if that was enough for me. It was kind of like a little experiment. Like if I say this on camera, how will I feel? Would I feel release? And I kept it, and then had the intention to post it once inspired.
So aside from the reaction and aside from the backlash and everything, how did you feel when two things. First, when you recorded it and you had said what you wanted to say and you knew that you had said it, and two, when you put it out into the world, like how did you feel finally? You were saying that you were fed up and it was enough, and you seemed like you were at the tipping point, and then you put it out. What was it? How did it feel to you personally?
It felt really freeing on another level, because as much as in my day-to-day I'm very open about it, it's still an issue for me. I mentioned in the video there was someone from my past. Sorry, I'm losing you. I'm back. There was someone from my past that I grew up with, this man who I knew. He asked me if I was Muslim, and I told him that I was, just out of fear. And I felt really ashamed of myself and my lack of conviction, and also just realizing how deeply it still affects me. Because if I had mentioned to him that I was not a Muslim, he would have probably spread this word around, and it would have gotten back to my family. And again, the fear of not disappointing or bringing shame onto my family. yeah, but it was freeing. And then when a lot of people started to attack me and with their nonsense,
Yeah.
it was literally nonsense. No one had anything intelligent or intellectual to tell me apart from the fact that I'm going to burn in hell. And
Wow.
I was already prepared for that. And, you know, I received death threats, the whole lot. And I expected it. And because I expected it, the weight of their comments just filtered down, and because I just couldn't care less.
Did you report
Yeah.
the death threats to the police?
I believe so. Yes, I have a team with my music team, and they were very protective. So they did it on my behalf for my safety. I kind of took it as nonsense. Maybe I shouldn't be so arrogant to say that, but for my safety, they were like, I don't care what you say, Autumn. I'm going to report this, and you know,
Good.
and these people should be face the consequences for doing such. And I agree 100%.
Wait, did the
Sometimes,
police follow up? I hear a lot of bad things about what the police is focusing on in London, and I don't know what to trust. But the police, did they show up, and did they do anything, or did they only?
Unfortunately, I can't say that anything really happened after that. Nothing really happened, and then this happened like a month ago. The video was put out a month ago, so a week or two into the video, that's when other people started to share, and the energy started to shift into positivity, like I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And so I just focused on that and decided not to pay any mind to it. Is that wrong? Should I be more precautious and careful? Maybe, but I don't feel.
I mean, even if you're not worried, it's good if people commit a crime, which is sending a death threat is a crime. It's just a good idea to report it, whether you feel threatened by it or not. I think it's important to report it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Maybe this is a lesson I'll take.
Yeah. There's this, one of the things that we talked to Noon Benson about is she was talking about a sort of a progressive radicalization of the Somali diaspora in the sense that with Somali culture, you had the Waq, it's spelled, I think, WAAQ. There was the Waq mythology. There's other cultural elements that people have there. And she was of the view that a lot of the recent radicalization, there's been more radicalization moving from a more sort of, I guess, open or a liberal view of Islam in the Somali Muslim community to one that's becoming sort of more fundamentalist and maybe sort of Saudiized or Arabized in a sense. So have you noticed that at all? Is that something that you had to deal with?
I can't say I have. I mentioned when I put the video out that this is when I started to get exposed to a much bigger, larger question, and I realized that this ex-Muslim community and everything that's been happening has existed before little old me decided to post a video. But I have noticed that, and I have paid attention to it, and I see a lot of liberalism even in the Muslim community. I see it in my many Muslim friends who, aren't as radical and aren't as fundamentalist. But I don't know too much about the Waq Nation. Was it the Waq Nation or?
Yeah, the Waq Nation is I think the podcast that Noon has now. But
okay.
But overall, that was the
I must look into it. I must look into it.
You should come to the August 17th. Is it August 17th? August 16 event in London. There's going to be a lot of ex-Muslims in London there. I'm going to be there speaking. There's going to be Widovids, Mimzivids, Imtiaz Shams, a lot of big atheist YouTubers like Rationality Rules, GM Skeptic. You should come today. It would be a great. I mean, you should have been invited already to come and as an honorary guest. You shouldn't. I'm gonna talk to Widovids and see if we could like.
Are you gonna tell them off for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know we're gonna get to Patreon questions later, but I really want to get this one. Chris is saying, would it be possible to hear you sing just a little bit? If you don't want to, that's perfectly okay. It's 100% your choice. Is that okay?
We're putting you on the spot.
As soon as I heard that question, a song actually came to mind.
Okay.
That I wrote. It goes, and it's very. It goes with the topic of conversation. I wrote this when I was 17, and it says, "And I was 17, dreaming of utopia, of a place where opportunities come equally to all those who breathe, to all those who bleed. I swear I pray each day this world becomes a better place to be. And it starts with you and me."
Oh, wow. Was that when you were 17?
Absolutely. This was my mission my whole entire life. What I stand for in my music as well. Just to quickly touch on that. I do share my experiences with religion, with sex, with everything. I've seen and felt and dealt. I've lived a really long life. I've lived a life. And I try to come from the heart. And I just stand for just peace, freedom, empowerment.
Oh, you got cut.
I channel my experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're back. I'm so glad that you didn't cut out during this. I was so worried that you're gonna get cut out during the singing, but you didn't get cut.
Oh God, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
That's
thank you
amazing.
so much.
Yeah, that's we're gonna put your music links and everything in the description. So
Yeah.
again, just
By the way,
the audience.
on that note, Ali, guys, if you're
Thank you.
ex-Muslim, atheist, secular, you guys, it's your responsibility to go find her work, and you have to promote it. We like as a
I have to mention, sorry to cut you off.
No, go on.
So I do have music online on YouTube, and you'll find my stuff, but I'm still an unofficial, I still haven't officially released material. I'm still a baby in this world of my art being out there. My first official song will be out later this year.
Nice.
Nice.
So I would just love if you guys could follow me and pay attention. If you're in London, come to my shows. I have a gig on the 18th of July. So if you're in London, save the date. It's 18th of July. But I'm just putting myself out there. You know, I'm gigging a lot. I'm building my music. If you can see, I have over there. That's where I produce my work. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
your
On the
digital
computer.
workstation. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm building and finding my way. But I would love if you guys just jumped on the journey with me.
So
valid.
if you want to first of all, the music is already beautiful, so it's easy to But if you want to support your fellow ex-Muslims or atheists, just go to her events, follow her on social media, share her album when it comes out, and also if you're having an event, reach out to her and see if she's available for a gig. Just support your fellow ex-Muslims, support your fellow atheists, because we are we are very much alone, right? Like the atheist community, the ex-Muslim community, the secular community, we don't get much support, and a lot of us feel very alone. So when you find ways to support each other, just do it. Okay, this is so yeah.
Yeah, I also want
Thank
to
you
add
so much.
one more thing to it, is that we do have a lot of conferences. We have people who have great minds. We have people who've written books like Armin and I, and there's a lot of sort of cerebral stuff, intellectual conversation happening in the secular community and the ex-Muslim community. But there is something that really hits you emotionally with musicians, with art, with storytelling, and this is, I've seen sort of stand-up comedians who talk about this, singers, who sing about these things. Like we do need more of that. I would love to see more events where it's not just about conferences and people speaking, but people coming together and celebrating their talents and their artistic expression. and just
Art
putting it
is
out.
beautiful. Art is expression. Art
And-
is expression.
Yeah, and it resonates in a way that just regular ideas placed on their own don't. I mean, that's why religion is so powerful. Is because, say, in Islam you have the adhan, you have the tilawat, you've got the poetry, you've got calligraphy. In Christianity, we've had so many art forms, like all of the art and the sculpture and the hymns and the gospel choirs. So these things actually are very powerful in terms of having, and to have people of your own who have this kind of talent to do it. I mean, I think we should be celebrating that more. That's the next step, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to also say that my experience as an ex-Muslim is a very heavy topical subject on my music. And
Really?
I'm not, absolutely. I'm not talking about rubbish, superficial things. I talk about my experience as a non-Muslim. I try to contextualize it and phrase it musically, the journey, and I've not heard that yet, but I'm
Okay.
it's going to be exciting.
So what I'm gonna do is once these are gonna be released on YouTube as well, right? On YouTube.
The songs?
Hello, can you hear it?
Oh wow! Sorry, I didn't think you were speaking to me.
Are you gonna release your?
They
song?
will be.
Okay.
Yes, they will be on YouTube.
So what
yes,
I'm gonna
they
do
will be on
is
Spotify and everything.
I'm gonna keep an eye on it and share it on Atheist Republic. And Atheist Republic is it has 2 million followers worldwide. So I'll make sure I'll share it there.
Wow.
I'll share it on our both Secular Jihadists and Atheist Republic's YouTube channel in the community section. And I'll also make sure we tweet about it. By the way, the people in our live chat are saying that was great. Shanta is clapping, and they're already subscribing to your YouTube channel. And also Shantaram, is that how am I saying it right?
Yeah, he's saying he's bringing a group to your gig. To the
On London show on July 18th.
July 18th.
Group.
So.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, this will be really good.
Oh my God, you guys make me happy. I'm so glad we got to talk.
Yeah, me too. I think, this has been just so much fun just speaking to you. Is there anything else, I guess, that you wanted to, if there are other...
We have to go to Patron questions after this.
Yeah, you were growing up, and you were wearing a hijab as a girl of 8. When you grew older, you wanted to, obviously, to be a normal person and wear and think and live the way that you wanted to.
Absolutely.
There are so many other girls and boys who are in that situation around the world, not just in the UK. What would you say to them? Like, if they're listening to this, right, and they're looking for a way to liberate themselves, what would you say to them?
Wow.
No pressure.
I want to, none at all. From my heart, I want to say to anyone listening who can relate to my story and my questioning when I was young, the biggest thing for me was I felt like what I thought was wrong. I punished myself. I had so much guilt and shame and hatred for myself because I thought this was the truth and I was the outsider. But I'm here to tell you today that you are absolutely licensed and free to believe what you would like to, what you want to believe in. You have you're right in believing what you feel, and life is so beautiful when you're able to walk towards your truth. And yes, unfortunately, you might come across a lot of conflict. I think our community are not prepared or open enough or tolerant enough yet, but we are those who will help normalize it for our children and those to come. Don't feel shameful. Talk to each other. Seek close friends and people who you trust that can help you feel normal. I know I had that for sure. I met a woman who, a lady, she's my sister, actually my chosen life sister, and her name is Amina. And she's 10 years my senior, and I remember speaking about this to her in private, and she made me feel sane and normal, and she encouraged me without forcing me to do anything. And I support you, and I believe in I believe in you guys. So that's all I want to say, that it's okay what you're feeling, and just go ahead. You're getting me emotional, but just go ahead. You're not doing anything wrong despite what anyone tells you. I promise.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better.
That was so sweet.
So we're going to move on to some of the patron questions.
Yay!
So Zarathustra is asking, this is a question for any of us, but I think we'll direct it to you, Autumn. How would you describe the reaction you get from devout Muslims on meeting you when they find out you're a non-believer? And then he's saying, would you describe it as atavistic? Atavistic, I think, what does that mean? That means like
advising.
I guess, yeah. Well, it means like, are they sort of, do they think that you're rejecting a traditional thing? You know, that you're sort of selling out in a way or whatever. I mean, did you ever experience that kind of reaction?
Yes, absolutely. There are many, yes, I do get approached a lot, especially online. And there are a lot of assumptions. Apparently I've come out as a non-Muslim because I wanted attention. And, you know, I sold myself to further my music career and to make money, which is a little bit ridiculous. Have you seen my room?
Yeah. And get death threats, of course. That's what you wanted all along.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to be isolated from my entire community and family. And
from your mother. Yeah.
Exactly.
So much fun. So much fun.
There were also a lot of people send me advice on the fact that I didn't do my research properly and that I'm lost. I'm still lost, and I will come back to Islam and follow the right path. And I try to remind them that's your path. There's no real path. That's yours. And I think I just, for the most part, my intelligence is really undermined. And apparently I've not done my research. And I'm still ignorant. And I mean, yes, I don't know the answers. I don't have the answers, and I'm very comfortable.
By the way, have you noticed the double standard? Because if somebody converts to Islam without research, they don't question. That doesn't bother them. Like if somebody says,
you don't need any research to convert to Islam.
Yeah, but imagine. Have you ever seen like a Muslim say, like, let's say, oh, I want to become a Muslim, and a Muslim ask, oh, have you done your research? And like, no, I just want to become Muslim. Would any Muslim come to you, but like, no. First, go do your research. You can't just accept Islam without doing your research. Like, have you ever seen any examples of that like that?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's, hey, I want to be a Muslim. Really? Great. Come with me to the mosque and do your shahada. And also earlier, yeah, exactly. You can welcome people to walk into your faith, right, but you don't welcome people to leave. That was what we were talking about earlier as well.
It's like Hotel California.
Say that again? I
say it's like Hotel California.
You can get out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's cool. So another question from Zara is, would you say that, did you ever truly believe? Were you ever a believing Muslim? Or do you feel like you were always sort of play acting or just kind of going through the motions?
A born skeptic.
Before you left?
Yeah, I was always skeptical, and I did pretend for the most part. But
very impressive.
Because this was because I didn't feel like there was an option. So this is my perspective. So here is this faith, and everyone's like praying and doing what they're doing, and I'm here, and I cannot relate at all. But there's like a hellfire, and everyone's so sure of this, and I believed that I was the devil and the wrong. That was my conflict, you know. So I felt like I was going to be punished for my position. I couldn't mask it internally. So I would try to pray. I would, when I was young, I'm like praying 5 times a day, doing my wudu, and God, trying my best I wanted to be a Muslim. Let me just say that I wanted to, because I'm very much a people pleaser. I wanted to please my family. I would never have wanted to rebel if but unfortunately, I had to pretend.
Can you write a song where you're having a conversation with your God about Vuzu, and then as the song progresses, eventually it turns into a conversation with the devil, and something like that. That would be an interesting song. Yeah.
I am an artist and I do write songs, and I can say that it gives me the license to, say things in ways that only make sense in a song or in a movie or in an art form. But I do play with those ideas because that was really my reality, I feel like.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a comment here from Chris, who's saying coming out as ex-Muslim in a country like Somalia, where your disbelief can get you killed, is very brave. I hope
she's
this
in the
story.
UK.
She's in the UK, but still, I think from that community, I hope this story gets more people to come out. Yeah, I agree with you.
But on that point, if you are in Somalia and it's a life-threatening thing to do, please maybe don't do it. Right? Like, don't be that. It's good to be brave, but don't be that brave.
That's so heartbreaking. And I did receive messages from people from Somalia and from different parts of the world where if they leave Islam, they will be punished by death or face very extreme consequences.
Right.
And yes, they all are pretending and living in silence. Again, please don't risk your life. It's not worth it. We need to change this and maybe create secret communities, Right. And maybe we can influence the laws. That's definitely a passion of mine now, to try to see what we can do in that realm.
To be fair, if somebody does decide that it is worth the cost, I don't think we get to tell them that they shouldn't, because at the end of the day, the only reason why these laws have changed, the only reason why we are enjoying freedom in some other countries is because some people risk their lives, right? Like, I don't think we should be encouraging people to risk their lives, but if somebody somewhere decides that they do want to risk their lives and this is a cause worthy, I think we shouldn't tell them that they're making a wrong decision. I think we should just thank them for their sacrifice. I think. Yeah. I don't know.
Absolutely. I cannot personally stomach the idea of someone, dying, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like if that's what you need to do, then you'll only be admired in my books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was during the time that I was writing my book, I got a lot of messages from people saying the same kind of thing in all kinds of Muslim majority countries. And then I realized I felt like it was almost a responsibility, because I am here, I'm in Canada. I have a good relationship with my family. I have the ability to speak out in an open society, right? I have the ability to have access to good security systems and law enforcement. I felt like it would be almost criminal for me not to speak out. I'm not saying everybody should, but just because there are so many people who can't, who can't do it. So the fact that I'm able to do it, I should. And that's I think one of the things that's so important about people from Somali backgrounds like you, people from Iranian backgrounds like Armin, people from Pakistani backgrounds like me, who are fortunate to be living in societies where we can speak, it's exactly because of this reason, because of those messages you got from these people who can't speak out. That's why it's so important for us to talk about this and say, it's okay. And this is not about being a Muslim or being an atheist or being an ex-Muslim. It's about having the choice and the freedom to say what you think and not have to suffer all of these crazy consequences for it. That's really all it's about. And
absolutely.
So Reason on Faith, who's a great, you should totally follow him. He's one of the most brilliant people that we have here. He's saying, so commendable when someone so young makes such a decision of authenticity and goes public to help normalize dissent. He's sending much love.
Sending love right back to you.
There you go. Shantram is saying, he's also praising you for being willing to stand up when many of us are too scared or unable. That's exactly what we were talking about. A lot of people praising your singing.
Yeah.
Like, they just love your music. So
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and last question from Kieran Evans. And if anybody has any more questions, just send them in now. This is your chance. So last questions. Yeah, he's saying a sensitive question. What can be done to tackle FGM in the UK Somali community? So I guess this is a very relevant question because Somalia has one of the highest rates of FGM. We know that, Ayan, her CLE underwent it, and it's actually quite common, not only in Somalia. I think the rate's almost 98%. In the Somali diaspora also, they try to get away with it as much as they can. And do you have any views on that? Anything that you've heard and how to tackle it?
I think it's absolutely terrible. I have many women in my family who underwent FGM. Fortunately for me, I didn't have that experience, but this is where I give my privilege to being born in Europe and it being illegal here, and a lot of families, out of fear of being persecuted, would maybe avoid that. So I guess that is a positive thing. I'm not too sure how much it's happening right now in this day and age, and the statistics, and I need to look into that and see if it's as overwhelming as it used to be.
Well, I think the solution might be to actually apply the laws, because it's not like the laws are not there. Like, this is illegal in the UK, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's just the fear of being accusations of racism that maybe that is being, I don't know if that's increasing or becoming less, but because some people are bringing attention to the double standard when it comes to the police executing the laws evenly, I think that attention might actually eventually help, where they actually don't ignore this. But it is the fear of racism and the fear of being accused of Islamophobia that in some areas where police are not actually executing the law. So.
I think this is when we can start giving credit to the children, the young people, because we have a power when we speak up about our experiences. It may make other people in your friends and family or whoever feel very uncomfortable or ashamed. But use your voice. If you can use your voice, we can slowly get our power back and not be violated in such a way. If our family know that their children might tell on them, they won't do it.
Good.
And that's our power. We can't be imprisoned by anybody. So speak up.
Wow. I love your passion, by the way.
Yeah, amen. I was going to say amen, even as inappropriate as it is. Okay, so we did get one final question. This will be the last question, and then we're going to go on and conclude. Zara saying, how can Somalia be stabilized? Can the tribal conflicts ever be overcome? Okay, can you solve all the problems in Somalia is what we want to know right now here on this show.
Solve... Oh, sorry, you're asking me if we can solve all the problems.
No.
That was me joking.
Ali is joking. No, Somalia stabilized. That's a very complicated question.
Yeah, the question is that there are a lot of tribal conflicts in Somalia. Somalia is obviously unstable politically.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on how it can be stabilized, or what authorities can do, or the international community can do to help Somalia?
That's very, very tricky. Many countries around the world are facing a very corrupt government and politics and greed. It's true, Somalia, there are many tribes that don't get along. Nobody wants to see the other person represent, the other tribe to represent the country. Everyone gets, jealous and they want to jeopardize that. Again, we have to just embrace our diversity. Really, it boils down to something so simple and so human, which is compassion, understanding, teamwork. And unfortunately, many of us human beings, we struggle with that, and it reflects so terribly in a country like Somalia.
So with Somalia, I think one issue is that there's a lot of interest from outside of Somalia to keeping it a failed state. A lot of people are benefiting from not having a stable government there, and being able to remove all fight against all those influences, especially the religious influences coming from outside, is very important. And one thing that is that I've heard that is really missing out there is to support the children for the even if this generation of is dealing with the failed government, it's really important that you get a lot more return on your investment if you invest in the children of Somalia, like building schools, building a good education system there. Those are the things that I've heard. I have no idea if this is true or a good idea or the best source of our investment, but that's what
It's definitely a good idea. I would agree with you. It's always a great idea to educate our children, but to educate them to also be free thinkers and to think for themselves and to utilize their innovations and creativity and their solutions, and not just to build a school and make them sit for 14 hours a day, but to really transform. We have to give them the baton.
All right. So before we go, for people that are not going to check the description because they're listening to this on a podcast and they want to, while on their phone, they want to follow you on Twitter or subscribe to your YouTube channel or find you anywhere else on Instagram, what should they search for? Where can they find you?
Guys, you can find me on all social platforms at Autumn Sherif, AUTUMN, traditionally spelt. Sherif, SHERIF. That's me. Come and find me.
Come find her everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Follow her.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And really, really listen to the music. I mean, it's and if you're listening to this and you don't have access to the link, check out the performance on The Voice that you did on The Voice UK. What was that like to go up on that stage? Were you nervous? You seemed like you were killing it. You seemed so confident. You just went up and belted it out, and everyone went insane. And it was just seeing the judges just be blown away by you. What was that like? What were you feeling?
It was one of the most terrifying experiences of my entire life. I was so overwhelmed. Oh my God. It was insane. It was crazy even how it came about. I didn't have any connections or any exposure to that at all. But I went and got seeked it and met people and took the opportunity. But it was incredible. I feel like once I did that, it gave me enough confidence to really go and pursue, because it's like a window, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going on a show like that. It's like a window, and I saw myself on stage with, it was like 11, maybe 9 to 11 million people watching it per night, and that is just something that I never ever experienced. So it just gave me the confidence now to really. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, was your family there watching?
Yes, my mother was there. My mother was there. My siblings were there. And I'm very grateful that, she did that and they did that, despite what people might think,
This was before you came out as ex-Muslim or after?
This was way before. I was 19. It was very well received for the most part. Of course, people had their comments, but I was still very, innocently packaged, very kind of not expressing views or anything to detail.
By their comments,
is an understatement. Like if you look at the audience reaction, saying that it was well received is quite an understatement. And it doesn't. You said it was terrifying. It didn't come across that way either. You look like you absolutely owned that.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. Ali, you gotta.
You gotta.
I literally wanted, I had tears coming down my eyes because I was so terrified before the cameras went live, and I remember the makeup artists drying my tears, drying my tears and telling me to calm down because I'm about to be shown live too.
So, by comments, do you mean people were saying even before you were an ex-Muslim, this was too expressive, too showing yourself to too many people? That's the kind of comments that were people giving. Even this is.
Music is considered sinful in some areas
Right.
of the Somali
Right.
the Muslim community. Music was never a thing that was championed or celebrated. Although there are many talented Muslim musicians, there's a gentleman called Idris Muhammad who is absolutely incredible.
It's more tolerated from
Famous.
men though than women.
Exactly, and people were more focused on my dress and the fact that my hair was out, and why couldn't I do it being modest, you know? And even now, there, you know, the Muslim community will champion a woman from, you know, who's Muslim with a full hijab and consider her, put her on a high regard because she kept her modesty and because she didn't compromise herself, and whereas people like me will be shamed because apparently we've lost our identity.
So in Iran, for example, it was illegal for women to sing, but it was legal for men to sing, become singers. But eventually they changed the laws, and listen to this. This is how the progress was made. Eventually, women can sing as long as their voice is being drowned out by a couple of men. So you can sing you can sing alongside a couple of men, so that the audience are not just hearing a woman singing by herself.
That is so ridiculous.
Religious, it's weird. Religion kind of.
How do people justify this? Where do they come up with these rule books?
It's in the Bukhari's hadith and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is what does it. It's just religious belief. It's weird how it turns the minds of educated, grown men usually into complete morons. It just completely turns them, like it's comical, the kind of stuff they come up with. But anyway, Autumn, thank you for your
last
time.
comment. Shantaram is saying, "I'm very happy to now have Autumn to show my nieces as and point to as a role model."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually,
Yes.
I'm gonna brag about this. I'm gonna show you. You know my niece who
Yeah.
listened to your music yesterday and was totally blown away. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna show her how you know.
When you
the
become
video-
famous, I'm gonna
It'll be
tell
fun.
people. I'm gonna tell people that Ali and I did a show with her. Like that.
It'll be iconic.
Guys, can I close off with a little something?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
Let me get my key. And I won't be blinded no more. And I've decided I'm worth more. No, I won't be lied to no more. There's a world inside me I've ignored. Don't take my body, fuck devotion.
That was great. That was perfect. What a
Thank you so
Perfect
much.
note to end this on. Thank you very much, Autumn. Thank you so much for
I'm
joining
sorry.
us.
I'm sorry for swearing. I don't know what your rules are on there.
Oh no, it's more swearing.
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want. We were
Yes.
actually holding back.
It's encouraged. Yes.
Thank you guys
All
so
right.
much for giving me the platform to speak with you. I'm so happy we did this.
Oh.
I hope we speak soon.
Yeah. Hopefully, I see you in London. All right.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.